Pearson Crutcher. I'm the director of the Society of Entrepreneurs, and I just want to say thank you so much for everybody joining us today. I love this place. I love this building. I love everything Junior Achievement stands for and the Society of Entrepreneurs. So what a perfect combination. I want to first thank everybody that is the sponsors of the Entrepreneurs Roundtable. I've had a few people ask me about this meeting. This is the Entrepreneurs Roundtable, and it is open to anyone that typically owns a business or that wants to be at these meetings. You make reservations, and if you want to be added to the mailing list, make sure you give your email to Lisa in the back before you leave, and we can do that. And I like to thank my sponsors because without them, this wouldn't be possible. So the ones with us today are people from Paragon Bank, my favorite people, Robert Shaw, Tracy Strickland, and Emily Friedman. If y'all could wave and say, thank you, Paragon, for making this possible. We really appreciate it. And I also want to say thank you to V2 Media. V2 is the one that can make all of this work because I certainly can't. And they're also recording today's presentation. So when you want to remember something that Bill said, it will be on our website soon. So the other sponsor that I want to thank is Junior Achievement. We've had a long-standing partnership with Junior Achievement and give the Master Entrepreneur Award with them, not annually, but almost. So I'm going to let Lee Mansberg say a very quick welcome before we get the program started. Hello, Lee.
Hello, Pearson. Welcome, everybody. It's my honor on behalf of the Junior Achievement staff who's in here with me, Mary and Phil, and our Board of Trustees, to welcome you to Junior Achievement of Memphis in the Mid-South. I can think of no better place to talk about changing the narrative of our city than within a magical city that is teaching children how to be citizens and take responsibility for a community we love very much and stand up and lead. In front of you on your tables, you will see our program guide, and you will see the opportunity to volunteer. We will engage more than 2,000 volunteers this year because you cannot become what you can't see. Many of you in this room, Dunavant shuts down every year to bring all of their staff out to volunteer. Many of you in this room do that same thing. Special things. I saw an entrepreneur, Ashley Weaver, all of these gorgeous photographs in Startup Park are by her, and there are just amazing stories in here, and thanks to Paragon as well, because they open up programming almost every year in their service to Binghamton Christian School, and we are just so grateful they'll bring both BizTown and Finance Park. So thank you, welcome, and thanks, Pearson.
And thank you for sticking to your time. I appreciate it, Lee. Everybody that knows me knows how I'm about my time. Thank you very much. Now I have the pleasure of introducing a visionary leader, a proud Memphian, and also one of the newest members of the Society of Entrepreneurs, Bill Dunavant. Bill is a sixth-generation Memphian and a University of Virginia graduate. As chairman of Dunavant Enterprises, he has led the company through a remarkable evolution, from its beginnings as the world's largest cotton brokerage to a global force in logistics, supply chain solutions, and development. But beyond business, Bill is a true advocate for Memphis. His work with the Memphis Chamber's Chairman's Circle and many civic boards reflects a deep commitment to reshaping how the world sees our city and how we see it ourselves. Today, Bill will share an inspiring and grounded look at Memphis, its past, present, and the extraordinary potential that lies ahead. His insights will challenge us to rethink the narrative around our city and engage in the exciting transformation already underway. Please join me in welcoming Bill Dunavant.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. I've been traveling for about 5 weeks, so I've been off the road of speaking. Let me give you a little history before I start. I was asked to be chairman of the Memphis Chamber Chairman's Circle for 2024. What I'm about to show you was the sleeping problem my wife said I had in October, November of 23, because I kept getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning saying, I've been around the city for a long time. What do you see that you like? What do you see that you don't like? And what kept coming back to me was everybody in this room and what we do and say about our city and what we think about our city. Because I don't think we're thinking the right way. I don't think we're communicating the right way. Maybe it's because inherently we want to be negative. We want to think about the worst case, not the best case. Well, what I'm about to fire hose you with is a lot of 4 o'clock in the morning as I started thinking about a city that I grew up in, a sixth-generation city that I know I'm not going anywhere because I've got seventh-generation kids here, eighth-generation grandkids, and I think we've got a really special place that we have got to believe in what we have first before the rest of the world's going to believe in what's going on in Memphis. And we are in a very, very transformational time for our city. And I hope, well, one thing I hope, and I'm going to ask you this question, did you hear something today in my presentation that you didn't know? If the answer to that question is yes, then it's your damn job to go sell it, to talk about the positive. So let me get started. I'm going to start with what's going on with the chamber because I had a year working as chairman of the Chairman's Circle. I was able to go across this city, across this region, and meet with business leaders and manufacturing and things I had no idea were going on in this city. And it just kept pumping me up and up and up about all the great things that are happening in our city and people that really believe in our city. So let's talk about the economics of what's going on. So let's talk about 2024. This is going to be my chamber spiel. So in 2024, our chamber announced 11 projects, 3,700 jobs, $14 billion of capital investment. You see some of those companies on the screen. So let's move forward. Let's talk about now that we're halfway through the year, here's what 2025 looks like. So in the first half, we announced 3 projects, okay? Hyco being the biggest. If you don't know who Hyco is, they're producing the largest electrical transformers built in America right here in Memphis. I'm sure some of you didn't know that. So 3 projects, 250 jobs, about $250 million of capital investments. But look at the top line. So this is what we call the chamber pipeline. I wish I could sit here and tell you that we're going to go 54-0. We're not. That is, when we say we got 54 projects in the pipeline, that means there are 54 companies that we are shortlisted. We're competing with other cities to win those projects. We're not going to go 54-0. But if we get 10 of those projects, it'll be a game changer. But look what those 54 projects represent. 6,000 new jobs coming to the region. And remember, everything about this presentation is regional. Memphis is the victim of 2 state borders. Fastest growing part of Mississippi is North Mississippi, right? Look at what's going on across the river in Arkansas. I'm going to show you some of that in a second. But look at the amount of money invested right there, $17 billion. So let's talk about not what I think or you think. Let's talk about what other people are saying about Memphis. And these aren't Mickey Mouse publications, okay? Wall Street Journal, U.S. cities with the most cutting-edge tech workers, number 4 in momentum, Memphis, Tennessee. I can attribute a lot of that to our largest technology company in Memphis, and that would be Federal Express and the amount of work that they have technology. So look at that, New York Times, the U.S. cities easiest for Gen Z to buy a home. I think this number's changing because I think real estate values are lifting in Memphis, but we're number 5. Look at this. Business facilities, this is the one that everybody in the whole world of logistics reads and looks at. We're 4 in a row, number 1, right there. That's the supply chain capital of the world. Thank you, FedEx, and thank you all of our railroads. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Here's one that happened last year that I was pretty proud of, 2 of them. One, the Greater Memphis Chamber won a bronze award. Those are usually awarded to states. Your Memphis Chamber got that award as a city. They're going to Philadelphia next week. They are shortlisted, our Memphis Chamber, to be the best chamber in America. So we're competing, and I hope they win in Philadelphia. Site Selection Magazine, best cities for headquarters. I was surprised at this. Memphis tied number 9 with San Diego and Phoenix, Arizona. So that's what big companies look at. They're going to come look if you're on that list. Be excited about that. This is really incredible. And you know, you see the Bird brothers are here. If you think about growing our economy, for the first time in history, our regional gross domestic product, as produced by the Federal Reserve, surpassed $100 million. Now, that in context probably doesn't mean much to everybody other than it sounds like a really big number. But when you look at it here, And you go back to the bottom left, that's 2002. So we're looking at 23 years at about 48 billion gross domestic product, and 23 years later, we're up over $100 million. But really, the number that you need to look at, the number you need to think about to believe that we're a city in the move, is you look at the last 3 years where we start hockey sticking in the upper right up there, 21, 90 billion, 22, 97 billion, 23, 103 billion. That's before XAI. That's a 7 and 6%. That's 14% growth in our federal gross domestic product. That's regional again. These are really, really important when we start talking about federal dollars and federal money. And I'm going to go into that in a second. So look, this is what I got. I was at a conference with Fred Smith at Blackberry Farms, and the professor from the University of Tennessee pulled his chart up. And when the chart came up, I really kind of choked, because this is population growth by counties. Now, here's the deceiving part about what we're looking at. I just said North Mississippi is the fastest growing part of the state of Mississippi. Well, that doesn't give us credit. This is just Tennessee. Do we have a population drain coming out of Memphis and West Tennessee? It clearly shows that. I'm going to tell you, as an optimist, as someone who's positive, West Tennessee is the opportunity. It's a challenge, but it's an opportunity, because we got plenty of people looking for work. I've got a slide out of place that I wanted to change, and that's the realignment or the building of I-69 through West Tennessee. I'm going to show you that in a second and what I think it does. But this doesn't have the blue oval effect in it yet, and I think the blue oval effect that I'm going to show you in a minute is going to satisfy that. Let's talk about the four. I put 4 big projects up. Because these are one you've heard of. One of them you probably hadn't. Obviously, Ford Blue Oval, it's coming. If you haven't driven out to drive around Ford Blue Oval, and you hear the rhetoric that maybe Ford's not building it, I want to just confirm. You drive out there, Ford is very pregnant in what they're doing, and very excited about what they're doing on that campus, and what that's going to mean to the surrounding areas. That's coming on. Can you believe Ford's going to produce 1 truck every 52 seconds? It'll be the first automobile plant on Earth where the last 3 bits of manufacturing, the trucks will drive autonomously out on the yard, and they will be the first facility on the globe to autonomously load a rail train without a human being. Pretty amazing. So the tri-venture between Mercedes, Daimler, and Cummins, that is a truck battery plant for big on-road trucks, not truck manufacturing, truck batteries. Start marrying Ford's electric and Daimler Chrysler and Cummins, that's electric. XAI, I've got a slide, I'm going to do that. Here's one that I put up because I'm proud of it. You don't have to win Ford and Amplify and all these big companies. Panther RX, rare pharmaceuticals, 7,000 rare diseases on Earth, and only 700 pharmaceuticals for those horrible, horrible diseases. Did you know Memphis, Tennessee has the company that is responsible for shipping those 700 drugs? More importantly, it's only about a $5 million investment, but in Collierville, Tennessee, it brought 125 jobs that are all 6-figure jobs. That's pretty important when you think about growing your economy. Oh, by the way, they ship 250,000 pharmaceuticals. Thank you, Federal Express. It's a good place to be located, right? So here's XAI. Now, I want you to look at 3 recurring terms in that narrative I put up there. Number 1, has built the world's largest supercomputer going to a million GPUs. The Tesla battery pack system that's going to preserve power will be the world's largest battery pack. Number 3, XAI is going to build at no charge to our city the largest ceramic membrane water recycling plant on Earth. 3 of the biggest on Earth are happening in our community, and we're not talking about it. Okay? I think a lot of noise has come with XAI. I think a lot of that is undeserved. What I look at, and oh, by the way, the last one is astounding. They're going to save 4.7 billion gallons in our aquifer, and I'm going to talk about the aquifer in a minute. There is no place on the globe that wouldn't want this project. Number one, because this project asks for how many dollars from city government, from state government, from federal government? How many dollars they ask for? And we want to bitch about that? Get ready, because there's another exciting announcement coming related to power with XAI that, again, is astounding what they're doing for our community. But here's the number that really blows me away. A NVIDIA chip, 1 million of them come into our community when it's fully built out. A NVIDIA chip has a lifespan of 3 years. Now, when you get to tax, you have property tax, you have equipment tax. What I'm telling you is, if you have a $50, $60 billion investment where the majority of the investment is chips, what's happening to your tax revenue? Every 3 years, it's rolling over to the benefit of our community that we can't get through our thick heads the benefit of that. Now, you're starting to see people say, wow, where are we going to spend all the money? Well, that's a wonderful conversation to have, that you realize the benefit of what XAI and the Chamber are doing for the long-term investment of our roads, our power grid, our schools, and everything. It is a game-changer investment. So let's talk about the black slide, I call it. So Marie Fegans, before she was tossed, and I were talking, and I asked her about conduct. In our school system, our Shelby County school system, how are our kids doing in conduct? She goes, Bill, 90% of our kids have passing grades, but the 10% of who you hear about. And I was kind of like pleased that there was 90%, but we're hearing about the 10. C.J. Davis came, and I hosted her at the Public Safety Committee of the Chamber, and she said, I've been here 2 years, and I want you all to know that we know the 20% of the criminals that are causing 80% of the problem. I was dumbfounded when she said that. I raised my hand and I said, CJ, I have dyslexia. Can you just repeat that? I'm a little slower than most people. When you extrapolate that 20%, we're only talking about 500, 600, 700 people. Who's controlling the narrative outside of Memphis about our city? Those 500 or 600, 700 bad guys that I want to do something with. Why? Because we're a city of 1.35 million. Now, here we are. So let me talk before I go to population. So here are the facts. This is it's so frustrating when we're not talking about the facts. Now, I got this. I've been out of town. I got it updated through the end of the year. The top two lines, 22 and 23, I'm going to call that the COVID crime years. And you track national trends on crime, you're going to see a very similar chart. But look what's happened. In 2024, overall crime in Memphis decreased 12.5%. Year to date, we're down another 16%. So you ask where that is. So let's look at it. These are not numbers that are made up. These are the real numbers. So the orange chart is 24. The yellow chart is first half of 25. Look at motor vehicle thefts, down 39%, 37%. Look at aggravated assault is the one that the police department is focused on. Who is that? Those are the worst guys. Those are the guys that don't need to be on the street, that are hurting people. Last year we didn't make as much progress. There's good progress going on now. That's how you solve the problem. We have got to take our narrative back. That the rest of the world says Memphis is a terrible, dangerous place. It's not. They don't live here, but it's the perception that you and I are not preaching hard enough to everybody else. So then you talk about who's on our team. Well, then those mornings I woke up, I said, let's look at what's happening in the rest of Tennessee. Okay, so let's not talk about Nashville Metro. Let's not talk about Memphis Metro. It's Nashville region, Memphis region. Those 600 or 700 bad guys are screwing up the narrative for 1.33 million people. I've given this presentation to tens of thousands of Memphians. I gave it to West Tennessee home builders. I looked at them, I said, where are you building houses? In Memphis, raise your hand. Not many hands went up. I said in the suburbs, in Bartlett and Eads and Galloway and Arlington, they all raised their hand. I said, let me ask you a question. I want y'all to be honest with me. How many of you sell those houses and say how much safer it is because Memphis is a terrible place to live because of crime? Raise your damn hands. Very reluctantly. I said, well, let me tell you something about that narrative that you're putting out. We don't go to the Bartlett Grizzlies game. We don't fly out of West Memphis International Airport. We don't go to the Brooks Museum in Galloway, Tennessee. What goes on in Memphis supports the rest of us, and we've got to think regionally. Now look at the bottom one. West Tennessee population growth expected to grow by 12% to 2035. That is the state of Tennessee Blue Oval report. And I'm going to show that in a second. Let's talk about MSA first. So MSA is the federal census every 10 years. When I started digging with this, and I've got the chamber, we're really digging hard. Why? Because we got 5 years to the next census that happened. Why is this important? Remember, our MSA is defined in that number that I just showed you, 1.330. West Tennessee population growth, we're going to grow by 110,000 people because of Ford in the next 10 years. So immediately that number goes to almost 1.5. What astounded me about our MSA is the Tennessee counties included. I think it's incredible that you're going to tell me that we're only 3 counties depending on Memphis and driving and commuting and all the things that make up the MSA. So I think in the 2030 census, Blue Oval effect, Hardeman County, Hayward County, Lauderdale County, I'm working with the chamber. How do we make damn sure that's included in the MSA? That's incredibly important. I'll go over it in a minute. Has no different than being a victim of those state boundaries, because look where our biggest MSA is. North Mississippi. I think we can grow down to Panola County. I can't believe we're only 1 county in Arkansas with the amount of stuff that goes on across the river from us. We need to fight like hell to include Cross St. Francis and Mississippi County. Why is that important? Because that was where the federal dollars, the bucket of federal dollars, are broken up into who you are from an MSA standpoint, therefore the biggest MSA, therefore the biggest population, therefore the more federal dollars that follow our community. And if they're giving it away from federal level, by God, we're going to fight for it. So this is the report. That slide's out of whack. So direct jobs, this is Ford only, not the coat suppliers. There's 5,700 jobs happening up in Stanton, Tennessee. There's 21,000 jobs that you see coming and going from that site today. There's that population growth as related to one huge economic development for our city in manufacturing. Now, I'm not going to say XAI is not important, but that's probably about 500 to 700 jobs. This is a huge, with the code locators, that's a 7,000 job number. That's a game changer that any community in America would pray to have come to their community. It creates opportunity. So you look at this effect. This is a bit of an eye chart. I'm sorry. This is the state of Tennessee. And by the way, where's Pearson? Anybody who wants this presentation, there's no pride of authorship for positive. I want you to have it, share it with your family, your friends, your churches, study it, because you can't be a Memphis cheerleader unless you get the narrative straight. And I think this gives it to you. But that's the Tennessee River, that's the Mississippi River. So when you look at this right here, that Shelby County grows by 30,000, 3%. This is astounding. Hayward County is going to grow by 42%. That sounds incredible. It's only 7,000 people. Okay? But look at the impact that every county across the state in West Tennessee had. This is a really exciting slide. Okay, let's talk about education for a second. It's been a hot button in our community with everything that went on with the school system. I've been gone 5 weeks. I come back, and then the scores come out. Everybody read the scores that came out about schools? So I'm the positive guy, right? Our reading scores were 27% passing last year. This year's 32%. I'll take that. That's moving in the right direction. I was surprised that the state level average is 54%. So there's a lot of room for movement. But I will tell you this, I did the research because I really thought we were going to add one. I was with Governor Lee 2 months ago, and he said, I want to talk about education. and we were in his boardroom. I said, Governor, let me stop you for a second. Before you go negative, I got a question. Which county in the state of Tennessee has 4 of the top 12 performing school districts? He looked at me, you're baiting me. I said, no, I'm not baiting you because you need to be informed that Shelby County, Tennessee, we're doing something right in education. We just got to continue to do it better in the city and the surrounding area. Those 4 high school districts are ranked. I thought Lakeland was going to join. I can assure you that when this comes out next year, the University School District of the University of Memphis will absolutely be in the top. That's top 12. It says top 20. I did the research. Look for us to have 7 of the top 20 next year. That's incredibly good news. Why? It shows you that education can be done correctly. And so I was looking at this. I don't know if everybody's aware of what's happened in the state of Mississippi. And again, I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to find fault. I told the governor, we're spending $2 billion in Memphis in education. Are we getting a good return on our investment? The answer is obviously not. When you look at the state of Mississippi and what they did with their Literary-Based Promotion Act in 2013, they were ranked 49th in the country in reading. 13 years later, Mississippi is 9th nationally because the University of Mississippi took every reading teacher and taught them a common way to teach. And Mississippi ranks at the top, in the top 10% of America right now. The reason I read that is because I like to think about people winning and doing it the right way. I don't want to bitch about doing it the wrong way because that's a waste of time and energy, right? Look at the high schools. East High School was in there. They fell out, but we've got 3. I'm telling you, Collierville High School, I think is number 2 today behind Maryville as school district. I really believe Collierville perhaps next year will be the number 1 in the state. So look at these highlights below. Okay, I put one in for MUS. I think this is important. I'm a graduate at MUS. 60% of the graduates in MUS, we track it, come back to Memphis and make it a better place. I raised money for MUS. When I went and saw Fred Smith to raise money, I said, let me start by telling you that. He goes, I don't believe it. I said, Fred, it's for real. Our university, Memphis University School does that. He goes, hell, I'm proud of that. I said, we all ought to be. I'm speaking in front of Christian Brothers High School. I want the statistic for them. I want all of us to know and encourage younger students. I can talk to you all the time, blue in the face. I don't know what difference it makes. What if I talk to high school students and make them believe in our city? That's what's really, really important to me. So these 2, University of Tennessee Med School just got this, the R1 Carnegie accreditation. What does it mean? It opens you up to a vast amount of federal dollars. And oh, by the way, the University of Memphis in 2 years since that designation, Harold Byrd has probably gotten $100 million because of that designation. Now we're going to have 2, the med school as well. That opens it up. You look at federal dollars flowing into Tennessee from a medical standpoint, guess where it goes? Vanderbilt University. Doesn't come to Memphis. We're going to change that. University of Memphis, 3rd most diverse university in the United States. Celebrate that. That's who we are as a community. So let's go to arts and culture. You know, when I think about our community, at 4 o'clock in the morning, line by line, I was going through it. What do we have? What should we be proud of? What should we be talking? Because everybody in this room, when you look at that chart, you take that for granted. But when you bring somebody to our city who wants to move here, you need to pull that out and refresh their memory. I mean, God, having an NBA franchise and how proud we are to have that golf tournament, which has a $60 million impact in the middle of the hottest month in Memphis, Tennessee. And oh, by the way, over 1 billion people globally watch that golf tournament. And where is that golf tournament? It's right here in Memphis, Tennessee. The Showboats, the Redbirds, the Liberty Bowl. My dad made a big investment to save that. That's a $40 million economic impact in the month of December in our city. I hope it doesn't change with everything going on. The University of Memphis takes over the Liberty Bowl. Thank you again to Fred Smith for doing that. But then you look at our museum system. You say, hey, what are your cultural? One is sports. Let's look at culture. Okay, well, the Metal Museum, that's coming. That's awesome. Two worst things historically that ever happened to our city. One, the yellow fever epidemic. Number two, we didn't ask for it, the assassination of Martin Luther King. Thank you, Pitt Hyde, for taking that and turning that into an internationally known civil rights museum right in the heart of Memphis for people to learn about the history of the past so we can be better for the future. The Memphis Botanic Garden, it's a gem. I was on the board. I served as chairman of the board for the Botanic Garden. Why? Because my mother told me I had to do something. And I got on that board. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on the board for 2 meetings, and I said, look, the plants, trees, and flowers are killing you. You got to reinvest in the way we think. We need something to produce revenue. And a little old lady walked in the front door. Her name is Helen Harden. You've been to Harden Hall. That produces income of $700,000 at Botanic Garden. And then some 32-year-old board member comes up with his harebrained scream, I think we ought to have an outdoor concert series that developed into Live at the Garden. 26 years later, look at what's going on. A $6.5 million stage. I told them we'd lose $500,000 in the first 5 years. And these ladies looked at me, that's a lot of money. And I said, look, we can do it. And when we lost 300 the first year, and I had personally guaranteed it, my wife wanted to divorce me. But we stuck with it. We stuck with it and look at the asset that we've got for our city. You go over here to the Brooks Museum, you can't make up what's going on downtown. I drove by it yesterday. That is not a nationally recognized museum. That will be a globally recognized museum when it opens right on the river, right in the heart of our downtown. The Dixon Gallery and Gardens, another beautiful asset for the city. Oh, by the way, and I know the zoo's continuing to be on the move, our zoo was ranked number 2 in America last year. If you didn't know that, sell it because it's real. We've got a national zoo. You can't have a good city without a great park system and community centers. Jim Strickland invested over $110 million in our community centers in 8 years to service all of our city. You look at the work, and I was on the committee with Pitt and Fred and everybody to raise money for Shelby Farms, the largest urban park in America. Now you look all these years later at 35 or 40 miles of bike trails. Oh, by the way, Charlie McBain hog-tied a railroad to get it over the Mississippi River, and we got it in Arkansas too. No community in America has bike trails like we do. I tell my sales team all the time, you bring a customer to Memphis, Tennessee, your expense account better have them at Coastal Seafood at Shelby Farm. You better ask them a question, how do they like our city? Because it's one of the prettiest venues in America, right? It will impress. Audubon Park, again, Botanic Garden, golf course, the Leftwich Tennis Center. You look at all these assets, Overton Park, the new golf course, look at down on the river what's going on. Is there a problem with our park system that we shouldn't be proud of? Hell no, we ought to be celebrating because I think we're one of the leading cities in America. So look at this chart. 13% of our Memphis region's workforce are employed by the health and medical community. I think this is important to celebrate what we're doing in Memphis medically and what Nashville's doing in Nashville medically. Oracle just moved their corporate headquarters to Nashville because of the medical community. Look, where on earth would not celebrate having a medical institution whose job is to put themselves out of business by solving children's cancer? That is a globally recognized name that is putting billions and billions and billions of dollars into our community. 2 buildings about to be finished, another one going up. Where is it? Memphis, Tennessee. Researchers, doctors, everybody. We are the place for children's cancer. You look at Methodist, they just finished a $110 million pediatric cardiac facility. It immediately in 1 year is ranked top 10 in America. People are bringing children to Memphis, Tennessee who have cardiac pediatric problems. Now, you don't want to celebrate that, but you want to be a place that has that type of facility. Obviously, Methodist, Baptists are very, very important. Church Health Center doesn't take federal dollars. I'm giving this presentation to Church Health Center staff because of the incredible work the Church Health Center does. They don't take federal dollars. Scott Morris didn't want any government involvement in his operation. And it is a nationally recognized hospital that's doing work for people who can't pay for health care. Celebrate the work that they're doing down there. Now, Regional 1, obviously having a level 1 trauma center, they're looking at rebuilding their facility. It's a big number, billion and a half dollars. Their facilities are very antiquated. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but there is no competition in healthcare. If we can continue to make healthcare a driving force in our community, regionally, we will thrive in that business. So let's talk. You can't do a damn thing anywhere you live without infrastructure, okay? Driving here, I was very happy to see I-240 getting paved. On the loop. I think it needed it. The holes in the road, only thing the holes in the road were doing is probably giving the people driving too fast blowouts. So I'm very happy TDOT is focusing on that because I think that's important. So about 3 years ago, it's under construction right now. A French company's coming in under the Strickland administration. We're building the largest fiber optic network to connect every piece of our community, from the poorest to the richest to the airports to the businesses. We are going to have that. The number 1 city in America for connectivity, Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we will be on par with them when that project is finished. I'm going to talk about it a little bit in a minute. You can't make up the benefit and values the Tennessee Valley Authority has for this region of the country, not just our region. We're obviously the largest user of power from TVA before XAI. I've heard Jeff Lyck speak about nuclear. He said he's got to double the production of TVA in the next 25 years. Imagine that. A federal utility that's been around that long, in 25 years, he's got to double the capacity. That's how power generation's got to grow. And we in Tennessee are better prepared to meet that goal than anywhere in America. Be proud of TVA. I'm going to talk about it in a second. So our aquifer, you can't make it up. I did a ton of research on this because I knew the environmentalists may get me. We got 100 trillion gallons of water under Memphis, Tennessee, as we sit today, that is naturally reoccurring and is the freshest, cleanest water from the Memphis aquifer on earth. I used to be in the agricultural business. China's running out of water. India's running out of water. Memphis, Tennessee will never run out of water. Now, here's your fun fact. In the last 10 years, who has bought and become the largest farmland owner in the state of Arkansas? Who? Bill Gates. Bill Gates also is the largest farmland owner in the state of Louisiana. He's a smart guy. If he's buying land, something's going on right in our part of the world, because I would trust what he does. But we got 100 trillion gallons, and it's reoccurring, okay? And it's a great, great asset. And Elon Musk comes in and says, we need to keep that great asset great, and I'm going to build that plant for y'all. So then you go to the I-55 bridge replacement. I was asked by TDOT, I'm going to deviate just a little bit because I got a fun fact for you. Butch Healy at TDOT asked me to go to Washington, D.C. with him. I said, Butch, what do you need? He goes, you're a great cheerleader. You're in the logistics business. You need to come sell Memphis to get this bridge over the Mississippi River, the head of the Federal Highway Administration. I said, Butch, I'm there. We got to get the bridge across the Mississippi River. So we go up there. Ted Townsend, Butch Healy, Will Reed, and one other guy from TDOT. We're walking in the Federal Highway Administrator's office to make the sell. 28 projects, 24 states vying for Biden's infrastructure dollars. As we're about to walk in the door, somebody goes, the administrator went to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and he was an Elvis impersonator. I said, hold on. You're kidding me, right? He goes, no, the guy was an Elvis impersonator. I said, okay. We walk in, sit down, the guy immediately, Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis Presley. I said, oh, holy smokes, he's real. We go through the whole spiel for Memphis, and we talk about the rail. We talk about everything going on, and we finish. And I said, Administrator, I just want to make one closing comment. Our project is different than the other 28 projects. Now, he goes, I want to tell you why. He looked at me, I said, Elvis is for it. 6 weeks later, Butch Healy called and goes, he's coming. I said, did we get it? He goes, no, but he's coming to Memphis. I said, Butch, I got it. Let me get with Ted. Federal Highway Administrator comes to Memphis, Tennessee, Delta nonstop. We pick him up on the ramp, put him on an escort, take him to Graceland. 20 minutes after he got off flight, He's walking in the front door with an Elvis TCB jacket on with Governor Lee and his wife. We had the whole meeting to talk about the bridge at the guest house at Graceland, and everybody was joking about Elvis. We put him in the car, drove him downtown, walked out on the bridge. I was with Paul Young, and the old bridge was doing this. Paul said, I got to get off this thing. It's going to fall in. We walked him, brought him back. I said, this is the plan. Put him in a car, drove him down Riverside Drive. So this is an $80 million reinvestment of a big park here in Memphis. This is a $200 million art museum. This is the other bridge that had the crack and almost fell in the river. Now, this right here is St. Jude's Children's Hospital with $2 billion of investment coming to our city. But let's go down Danny Town. We just want one more stop before we take you back there. We're going to stop in this place, Sun Studio, where Elvis recorded. You want to drop in here? Took him to the airport and said, yeah, any questions about Memphis, call us. I will go to my grave. I mean, thank you, Butch Ely and Steve Cohen and our senators. Elvis Presley helped us a lot with that bridge. That's a fun one. So our airport, you can't make it up. $3 billion past and future, not counting FedEx's $3 billion. That's $6 billion at our airport. 8.2 billion pounds of cargo moved in 2024. Fred told me that when I was meeting with him. Fred told me that we are the largest customs clearance port on the globe. Why? Because of FedEx, which is, I like the fun facts. I like the positive facts. 12% growth in our boarding from 22 to 24. Obviously, a lot of work going on. 27, the airport interchange comes out. I know everybody is bitching about the condition of the road at the airport, you know, with what people see and everything. You're right, but what you don't see is the amount of trucks that go to the FedEx at night to tear your road up. And so we need to concrete it and do it the right way. So this is dated, but this is a rendering of the new bridge across the river. Unfortunately, they've changed the design from a cost perspective. What did happen is there were 3 piers instead of 2, and the Corps of Engineers, fortunate for us, said navigation on the river, you got to spread it out and make it bigger. What did that do? The superstructures that you see from the roadbed of the bridge go up 6.5 stories. This is going to tower downtown Memphis when it's built. And obviously, always the first question, are we going to light it up like a Christmas tree? But this is a really exciting project that's coming. It's fast-tracked. This bridge will be finished by 2030, which is amazing. It's going to change. More truck traffic, believe it or not, goes across the old bridge than the new bridge because of all the distribution in North Mississippi. So let me show you this. My crazy ideas were spinning when I was chairman of the Chairman's Circle. And I started thinking about how do we produce and think about getting the positive narratives out there. And so I came up with a harebrained idea. How do we produce a video that talks about our city? Pick a topic. So I picked a topic, and I said I want it to be fun. I want it to be informative. I want it to be educational. I want it to tell a story. I want something to be proud of. And the chamber said, we'll pay for it. And I said, no, it's expensive. I'm going to pay for it because if we screw it up, you blame me. If it's successful, y'all take it. So have a look at this. I hope it comes out. I did the wrong one. Here, let me play it. I'll come back.
Why is that beer so tasty?
The water that we have here, because it's so mineral free, is absolutely perfect for these types of beers. It starts with the water.
Memphis has the purest, cleanest drinking water in the country, maybe the world.
We're one of the largest cities in the world that gets its water from an artesian well.
On a peak day, MLGW can pump more than 250 million gallons of water to approximately 255,000 customers.
But our aquifer is estimated to be more than 100 trillion gallons of water.
That's about 160 billion Olympic-sized swimming pools.
I have no idea how many bowls of grits that is.
To envision how much water that is, if we built a huge wall around Shelby County and brought the water to the surface, it would be enough water to go to the top of the Clark Tower.
This great water supply actually requires minimal treatment straight from the ground.
Memphis is truly blessed.
And we pay less for our water than about half the country.
If they gave out medals, we would win the H2 Olympics.
I guess it just makes us cooler.
I guess it does, little man. I guess it does.
So, educating, fun. Can the chamber show it to an incoming business? Yes. I told Marie Figgins, why aren't we teaching kids in school facts about our city? Well, I talk about park. We ought to do the same thing on park. My God, we ought to do one on the Mississippi River. Why? Because we can inform. Now, I don't know anything about social media. The chamber put that out, and we had 50,000 people look at it. I asked them if that's successful because I don't do social media. They said it was pretty successful. So if this chart I had out of place, I want y'all to understand what this means. So this is I-69. Remember West Tennessee didn't have the population growth? When you talk about having a federal interstate on the Arkansas side and the Mississippi side, coming down both sides, that is supply chain capital of the world enhancement. Now, the state of Tennessee has agreed to go ahead from the Kentucky border to Dyersburg. That will get the federal shield put on the I-69. Why is that important? Go back to the MSA. Once you get a federal shield, you get in line to start asking for that money every year, and we get that completed. It goes to Detroit. Hello, Blue Oval and Ford. Why is that important? So from a West Tennessee perspective, this is the NAFTA freeway. That's Texas on the bottom, going all the way up to the Midwest. This is a major piece for Memphis that I'll be dead and gone by the time it's built, but it's really important. So be excited about that. All right, so these are the 4 R's. Y'all have heard this. I'm not going to spend much time on it. We're the second largest cargo airport in the world. I think Hong Kong lies, but we won't go into that. The third busiest trucking corridor, I-95 on the East Coast, is number 1, but I-40 is a really, really important corridor for our country. I'm going to talk about the rails in a second. There's 6 Class 1 rails in the country. We are one of 5 cities that have 5: New Orleans, Memphis, Kansas City, St. Louis, and Chicago. So, and I'm going to talk about the rail traffic in a minute and what that means to us. Don't underestimate the river and the importance that is for moving freight, because you can move a lot of things on the river that you can't move by rail. And oh, by the way, 70% of America's grain production comes under those bridges in Memphis going to New Orleans to the global market. So probably for those in business, this is probably the most important slide for Memphis I'm going to put up there. The fact that we can reach 95% of the world's gross domestic product in 72 hours, go find me another city that can say that. Thank you, FedEx, for doing that for us, but that really puts you on the map economically, and I don't think we're selling that hard enough. And then, oh, by the way, America's distribution capital, when you can reach 48% of 48 hours, 75% of American population by truck, that's why Milwaukee Tools is here. That's why Nike's here. That's why all these distribution companies are here. So let's talk about that. 4 o'clock in the morning, I started listening to all the companies that I knew, and I didn't get all of them. These are our companies in the Memphis region. You can't make up. You know, you got Cargill, you got Dreyfus from the agricultural standpoint, Silvamo and International Paper, Orgill, the oldest company in Memphis, IMC, the largest intermodal truck carrier in America, Monogram Foods, you can't make it up. They produce food that keep heart doctors in business. They produce, believe it or not, Carl Sledgwick told me this, 4.5 million corn dogs a day. Who the hell eats 4.5 million corn dogs, right? But guess what? They're produced by a Memphis company. So one that we don't get credit for, we're the 9th largest manufacturer of medical device, you know, with Smith & Nephew, with Medtronics. You know, I've heard FedEx ships 45,000 hips, knees, and shoulder replacements per night to around the globe. And that's why all these companies are located here. International Paper, Ford, AutoZone. We're not celebrating all these great companies, and you don't know it until you put them all on one page. So when you get a copy of this presentation, read through there, because I'm going too quickly, but when you're talking to people outside of Memphis, talk to them about all the good companies we've got, because we got some really, really good companies. And the work the Chamber's doing with XAI, you know, I think I said it, I'll say it again. We got a really big announcement. I said, well, can I tell them what county it's in? And they said they have to wait till Thursday or next week. We got a really good announcement coming for West Tennessee. That's all I can say. And again, it's progress, and we got to keep making the progress. Okay? So this is important And this chart, unfortunately or fortunately, changed dramatically. I had to take this chart down in November. There were 7 megasites, as defined by sites over 500 acres in the Memphis area. So you think about Ford Blue Oval, they took down 3,600 acres, 6 square miles. That's how big that megasite was. The X is XAI. When they took down the other 530 acres, XAI bought that land. They hadn't announced what they're going to do with it yet, but I would say stay tuned in a positive way. We've got one in Arkansas. Another one in Arkansas was taken down. And I've got to be careful because they hadn't announced it, but I'll say it. Google has not made the announcement, but it's the worst kept secret in Arkansas. That Google's going to spend $10 billion in Arkansas. So you talk about the phrase was coined by Fred Smith and Richard, the digital delta. Why? Because Fred said, I run the largest technology company in the state. I just happen to deliver packages. And the digital delta, let's go after that. So what happened? XAI comes. What happens? Amazon goes to Jackson, Mississippi, $10 billion. Google, $10 billion in Arkansas. XAI, what is it? 30, 40, 50, 60 billion dollars. Will we get NVIDIA? Will we get Supermicro? Will we get Dell? Why is it important? Jobs. Why is it important? Tax revenue, sense of purpose for people in the community. But most importantly, if we start getting tagged as America's distribution with airport and rail and everything going on, it's a really great place to locate if you've got to distribute your stuff. Okay, so that's exciting. So what's not exciting is we don't have many sites. I'm working on a site in our corporation up at Galloway, just outside Arlington. You see where Ford is. We're still well positioned. Number 3 is where Amplify Cell Technology is going. I'm telling you, the North Mississippi and the state of Mississippi is whipping our butts attracting businesses to North Mississippi. Now, we can complain about it, but they use our airport, they cheer for our Grizzlies, and we get benefit from them that way. All right, so look, here's one I want everybody to read. Oh, by the way, right up the river in Mississippi County, Arkansas, and a little light's not coming on. Right there in Osceola, that thing ought to be right there. Osceola, Arkansas, Mississippi County is the largest steel manufacturing county in America. There's over $3 billion of additional investment being done as we speak. Raise your hand if you knew that we had the largest steel manufacturing county in America right next to it. I knew I'd teach somebody something. Okay, because I'm pretty simple. Let's put 2 plus 2 together, okay, in the next few slides. So there it is. They're the companies that are there. I mean, we've got Nucor down on the island next to XAI. So freeze that slide for a second. Number 1 steel producer. Now, I did this for the Port of Georgia when I was visiting with them, the importance of the inland port of Memphis. This is the automotive corridor. 25 years ago, I promise you this didn't look like this. Why did it not look like this? Because they weren't on the move. Right to work state. Oh, by the way, the green footprint. Most important part of any manufacturing is TVA and the power. But that's the migration to the southern part of the United States. But more importantly, as I was working on our project and my son started digging, and we got this number. So this is the EV investment. Tennessee alone is over $20 billion. Okay, and we're probably going to have at least 8 of that billion in Ford Blue Oval. And oh, by the way, this doesn't count North Mississippi Amplify. That's $3 billion. So then you start asking yourself the question, why are all these EV investments coming to Tennessee? Is it because of the migration, because of labor, or whatever? Well, then we found this one. Look at that. The Smackover Formation is that orange crescent from Texas through Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, and Texas. But you look at Magnolia, Arkansas, and when my son brought this to me 4 years ago, by the way, because we were trying to figure out why in the hell EV, he said, I think this is it. I said, there's one word on the screen that I said I know it's it. It's because Exxon was the first one to invest in the Smackover. And last spring, Exxon executed the contract to supply all the lithium to Ford Blue Oval. So you start putting 2 plus 2 together, right? Where's the lithium deposit? Very close to Memphis, Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee. Where's the steel industry? Very close, 2 plus 2. Remember, I'm in the supply chain business. Every mile is $1. It's real simple. Every mile is $1. You consolidate lithium and steel and logistics and warehouses and FedEx and all of that in Memphis, Tennessee. Personally, I think we're set for an explosion that we're not talking about, celebrating, and we got to get over it and start talking about it and get out there and sell our community. So look, I'm going to finish up with the rail because we take it for granted. We are one of 5 cities that have 5 of the Class 6, okay? I go back to my Elvis impersonator, the Federal Highway Administrator. When we were closing, I said, Administrator, I want to tell you something else. I don't know if you know this. We have 5 of the 6 rail facilities in Memphis, intermodal. They're bringing 2.5 to 3 million containers from the East Coast and West Coast to Memphis, Tennessee. That is environmentally the right thing to do. It's less wear and tear on federal roads. It's safer. But Administrator, the reason we need a new damn bridge in Memphis, Tennessee is we got to take those 3 million containers and distribute them. Because it's 6 million truck trips, East Coast, West Coast, because you got to go back if you come. And I think that helped the argument as well. So here's one. If you're Ford Blue Oval or Ford, you got to distribute 1 truck every 52 seconds. I've talked to Ford. I've been to Dearborn. How are they going to do it? 95% of the trucks coming off of Ford Blue Oval are going to be moved off the site by rail. So when you're selling the site, you say, well, how does Memphis look for rail? Well, let us show you where you can get to by rail from Memphis, Tennessee. Ford Logistics, do you have any questions? Because the chart screams of the success of America's distribution center. And that a lot of people don't realize that, but I'll tell you one thing. If you don't think these points right here are important, and the fastest growing division of our company is our cross-border Mexico division, Ford Motor Company is going to bring all of the electric motors for the trucks from Mexico into the Marion Union Pacific. So Mexico to Memphis is going to continue to be very important. So let me close. Here's what everybody here's got homework. This isn't free. I hope you've learned something. Raise your hand if you knew everything that I said. Thank you. I knew I was successful. But here's what I need y'all to do. We regionally as Memphis have got to start thinking differently about our narrative. We cannot let those 500 to 600 bad guys do it anymore. Okay? We got to vote smarter. We got to think like a community. We got to be regional. You know, Bartlett is part of Memphis, as Millington, as Olive Branch, as South Haven, as West Memphis, as Galloway, as Jackson, Tennessee. We are the regional power of this. You have got to go out and be the cheerleader. When you hear somebody talking negative, smother them with positive. It just makes you feel better, right? So take pride in it. I think you're going to do some questions. Thank you all very much. I enjoyed visiting with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know if this is on. It is on. We do try to end by 1 o'clock so that everybody can get back to their office, but we do have time for a few questions. If you have to walk out, you can walk out. I do want to say, before we take the questions, that Lee Mansbrook will be here. And if anybody wants to see Junior Achievement also, you can do that before you leave. But does anybody have any questions for Bill?
Questions? Everyone?
Oh, okay, Bill?
It's not really a question. I was at a chamber recruiting seminar early last year, 2024, and we had the questions and answers, and they had never addressed in discussing how they went out and recruited people the crime problem. So somebody from the audience said, well, so how are you handling this crime? I mean, that's what we get on the news for and everything. And they kind of looked at each other and said, to tell you the truth, that never comes up. We have to bring it up because we ask these people that are out looking for new locations all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, and they say, crime's everywhere. That's a non-issue.
Every city in this country has crime.
Yeah.
We tend to celebrate it on the news and in the press for whatever reason. I don't think it's right because it's counterproductive to what all of us as citizens are going to do. I live in East Memphis. I couldn't feel more safer. I've got a farm in Germantown, Collierville. Couldn't feel more safer. The numbers are moving in the right direction. We're just not talking about it. And that's the frustrating part. Somebody gets shot and murdered downtown, it's a headline. Downtown Memphis is the safest part of Memphis, Tennessee, as proven by the statistic. If you don't believe it, the AI cameras that Mayor Young's putting up down there, not the blue deals in your neighborhood. And I went with C.J. Davis. They gave me an example. Find every guy in a red car downtown. Poof! 5 red cars show up. Zero in on that license plate. Find every man in a black coat walking down the street. I looked at it, I said, kissing your wife behind the dumpster is over. Right? It's just over. So there's so much progress been, but we don't, from the chamber, we lost one deal a year and a half ago, and I'll tell you who we lost it to. We lost it. We didn't think crime was an issue, but we were competing against Nashville. And they beat us to death with crime in that company's mind. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to talk nasty about Nashville because we're going to beat them. We're going to be as good as them. I'm so proud for Nashville, Chattanooga, Nashville, the whole state. That's how I combat criticism of Memphis. I'm proud of Tennessee. I'm not going to dog somebody else because we're on the move. We're doing it ourselves. So that's what we all got to do. Thank y'all very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Lee, thank you. I'm a fat guy. I want everybody here. Junior Achievement 10 years ago served 4,500 students. 10 years ago. How many of you served last year?
46,250.
If you like a winner, bet on her. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.